If you can learn that, you are ahead of 95% of this country. The dopamine that kicks in isn't the actual purchase of the thing because you've got the thing. It's the actual process of buying it. Trading signals and Forex and look at me in my Lambo, life in Dubai guys. And they're really, really dangerous. And these kids look up to these guys and they create these personas. And again, massively dangerous. The main habit I ask myself is, will this actually provide me any value, or am I buying it because social status or social media is telling me that I should? So my script to do it moment was...
Before we get into today's conversation, this is genuinely relevant for a lot of founders listening. Are you running a business that pays suppliers abroad, receives international payments, or operates across borders? World First helps founders manage global payments and FX more efficiently with access to competitive exchange rates and tools designed specifically for growing businesses. World First have given us an exclusive offer for podcast listeners to get 50 transactions completely fee-free for 60 days. Head to worldfirst.com/screwit to create a free account and claim now. Now let's jump into the main conversation.
Sammie, I've got 2 teenage girls, right? And they've learned basically nothing about money at school. Yet they've started asking me about saving, about crypto, obviously, about investing, about the stock market. How have we ended up in a position in society where young people are expected to make adult decisions without ever being taught even the most basic thing when it comes to financial literacy?
Yeah, I mean, I have a big problem with the education system as it stands. I mean, I've sat in Labour literal committees about whether or not they're going to be putting it in. It's said that it's going to be made compulsory, but then they don't realise that it's probably going to cost about 200-300 million, and that's a very estimated figure to actually train these teachers, what they're then training them to teach these kids, and it's censored by the government, and that it just becomes this whole like minefield. And so I suggested, like, why don't you just make a really great digital solution, like get the likes of Martin Lewis or people like that on board, pay them a really decent sum of money, build a digital solution that you can give to these kids, utilize companies like GoHenry and all of these brilliant like apps that exist for kids, and bring them all under one roof. Spend 50 million quid, you save yourself a couple 100 million, you can give them a digitized solution, because every kid that, I'm sure your daughters are the same. They're like that on their phones, right? They're just up and down, scroll. That's it. They're digital natives. And I think that that's where you need to meet them to be able to get them to learn. And then for me, the second side of it is that I actually think that's really positive, because at that age, I definitely weren't asking those questions. I was like, where can I get a pack of 10 Mayfair from and drink a pint of Lamborghini on a park bench somewhere? So I was very different. So asking questions about saving, investing in crypto at that age is great. But that's because they have these social media apps, and there's even kids at their age that are very good at this stuff, then teaching them back to them. I mean, crypto's one of those things because it's just sexy and it's made a lot of money for a lot of people, and it's also lost a lot of people money, which then gives it its kind of that sexy nature essentially, because it's just like it's a bit dangerous, and obviously when you're 17, 18 you're like, that's cool. But I always say to kids, like, start out as young as you can and get going, because even £1 today, if you get that going and compounding, we all know what that works out as. But for the average person that doesn't, the longer you can give it, the more it's going to end up potentially making you over your lifetime. Even if you're saving alone, it's still a fantastic thing to get started early. Because I was in my 20s, I got myself quite badly into debt. Like, I went the other way. And so if you start at 18, 19, 20 or whatever, and you start saving and moving towards something, even if it's a £5 a month, it's going to massively help you when you do start to come and make those bigger adult decisions. Yeah.
And I remember telling my eldest when she first started asking, she's 19 next month, but and I think it might have been I need to put a pound jar in the swear jar every time I mentioned Diary of a CEO, but I think it was when Stephen had Ramit Sethi on, and it might have been, and he was talking about different percentages of your money. I thought, right, when you start actually earning some money, yes, you'll be a student, but you're earning a job. It doesn't matter how much you put, it's just making that taking that action, right? Making that conscious decision to put X amount into savings, like whether that's into the the S&P 500 or whether that's into crypto, whatever it is, right? but making that conscious decision to start that journey. And we must have been in the same park, because I was the same, but it was maybe 10 Benson in hedges and a flag and a strongbow. But
Exactly. yeah. They were the good old days of the early 90s, essentially. So, yeah.
What's the biggest mistake people make when they first start thinking about money?
They think that they need to do it all, and it can be overwhelming. And there's actual data that backs that up. A lot of people bury their head in the sand. It's really interesting. There's a study done. So there's like 73% of people think that they're financially literate, but only 23% of those pass the basic money tests. So what we do when we come to learn is that we feel like we need to go out. We do it the same with businesses and podcasts and YouTube channels. We're like obsessed. Like, we've got to learn everything. And when it comes to money, that can be quite overwhelming because there's so much conflicting information. It's like when you start a YouTube channel, it's like, make a great thumbnail, package it right, do the video editing, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty packaged up, and it's going to be the same for everyone. Whereas with money, everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got a different tactic, a different thing over here. And that alone is just like, what the hell do I even listen to? So that's the first thing, I think. And then they're like, I need to invest. I need to save. I need to get good credit score. I need to get on the housing ladder. And that, again, it's like, wow. So I just say you start with really bite-sized chunks. Like, what's a savings account and how does interest work? Like, start there and then slowly package these things on. And we have 6 things that we think is really important for people to learn. And yeah, it's the savings accounts and interest. It's compounding. It's stocks and shares ISAs, basic index funds, and your credit score, right? If you can learn that, you are ahead of 95% of this country. And past that point, you don't really need to know much. We always say this, that's the 10%, the 90% is all up here. It's how you even think and react. And money is largely emotion and energy. And I am a big proponent of that, because if you tell yourself we're bad with money, eventually you're going to make bad money decisions. If you tell yourself you're good with money and I'm going to be good this month, I'm going to try, at least you are then reinforcing those loops in your side of your head, because we do have a monkey brain. It's been proven. And largely that's where the majority of our spending decisions come from, impulse spending and getting suckered in by ads. And the world's changed, right? It's a digitized world, but it's very difficult for the average person to get through the day without being fed an ad, which gets very good and hits them right in, right where it hurts. And they're like, I need to buy that thing now because it's going to make my life better. Or I'm going to look great in that because I'm going out and I need to impress X, Y, and Z boy or girl, or beat my mate because he's just one up me and got the Audi 25, right? And so we're all making decisions consciously based on status and funneling that back in, and it just hurts our bank balance. So I think learning and awareness are the 2 massive problems and common mistakes when people sort of handle their money.
You said a couple of interesting things there. Tell me a little bit more about. I think you said money is energy and emotion, right?
Yeah.
And you alluded to that a little bit then when you said the buying decisions we make, those impulse buys, those emotive buys. But tell me a little bit more about that and why you believe that, the energy side of it as well.
I believe money is energy because we regret large parts of what we do. And equally as well, from an abundance perspective. So I have a vision board. I have it literally right behind this camera as we're speaking right now, and I change it once a year. And almost every single year, I would say a good 90+% of it comes true. There's some things that are on there that never change, like the big goals, and that's totally fine. And again, they do occasionally get moved around, but once a year I put a few goals, and they can be trivial goals, like I want to grow by 5,000 followers on Instagram because my business is a content business, so it reflects me, but it should reflect you. And small movements which are doable and slightly challenging, but that they're the things that I'm going to go for. And what you'll find is a large part of that's going to happen in a few months. So money goals are the same. And so I really think it's really important to lock in a goal for the year. What can you actually achieve during that year? And then tiny stretch your target as well. Like, if I put it up by a couple £100, am I going to get there? And you'll find that your brain just starts actively looking at ways to do that. And if you don't want to have a vision board up, if you're embarrassed or you don't want to have these figures in and around people, have a trigger word. So put it on the fridge. or put it on a post-it note on your computer, and you'll remember from that point on because you've already done the exercise. So it's about tricking your brain into believing that you are set up to grow. Like, you've set yourself a goal, you understand that it's either getting your emergency fund together or getting on the housing ladder or getting 10 grand in your investment portfolio, whatever that is. Everybody's different when it comes to money, and personal finance is personal, but that's going to trigger that for you. So it's that abundance mindset. And going back to what we said about energy as well, is that if you're feeling low and bad and you're a spender, and you know that on a Sunday afternoon after a big Saturday night out, you're splurging on ASOS to make yourself feel better, well, that's energy, right? That's how you're feeling around that, and you're utilizing spending to try and make yourself feel better in those regards. So you can put limits in place to try and stop yourself from doing that if it's harming your overall financial well-being. And so what we say to people is, if things over 100 quid, wait 24 hours, because it's 81% of impulse spends are regretted the next day. And that's a massive amount of that money is staying in your bank balance because we regret those purchases. And it's actually been studies done on this that shows that it's the dopamine that kicks in isn't the actual purchase of the thing because you've got the thing. It's the actual process of buying it and the lead up towards it. It's not the physical transaction. So I've had it before where I've bought myself these gold Air Max 97s thinking I was like super cool. They arrived, I opened the box and I literally looked at them and I was like, are you having a laugh, mate? Like, these are bold even for you. And so they stayed in the box. I had 30 days to give them back. And I gave them back on the 29th day because I couldn't bring myself to do it. I had that battle with myself, right? But it was a figure of regret. I opened the box like, what am I doing? But I just thought they looked cool. And I saw them on some influencer, on some, or Facebook ad or whatever that might well be. And I'm sucking in.
It's so funny you mentioned that because I've literally, when you said like you gave it back on that the 29th day, and taking my girls, we're going snowboarding in France, in Chamonix in a couple of weeks, and I've literally got all the gear, right? Got all the gear. Bought myself all new gear before the season back in November, right, when we went for the first time, and I've got two jackets, right? Two snowboard jackets. And I've just gone and bought myself a third one, right? Just because it had this like winter camo look. And I got these, winter camo bottoms, and I just kind of wanted the contrast. And then it arrived and I put it on. I was just kind of like, not really what I thought it was going to be. It didn't transform me into some snowboarding god, right?
Yeah. It looked better on the model on the online shop.
Exactly.
That's the problem, right? As well, you're like, oh, definitely going to look like that. And then I know for a fact because my girlfriend does it. She'll spend £300-400 on ASOS, and this massive package comes. And she'll keep one item out of about 25 because she's like, I don't look like the same as this person on this online ad. But a lot of people do that and then they forget, and or they keep it because they feel like they need to, or it does look good, and then they're £200-400 down and they didn't even need a new jacket or a ski outfit. Like, they've already got an old one which works fine. So it's playing this game with yourself. You want nice things, everybody does, we all do, and that's why we work and what we do, why we work hard. But there's a balance, right? And there's a balance between, I need to think about security and future me, but also I want to live my life now and have fun too. And so it's a constant game with yourself, and you go through seasons of life and things change and move around. It's very different for someone without kids, someone with kids, or someone with kids who are grown up versus kids with younger kids. So again, seasons of life, you're going to treat money very, very differently during that. And it's about being aware of that and feeling that it's all right. We're all trying to figure it out, but trying to give yourself some tools essentially to allow yourself to make better decisions for yourself.
Yeah, first thing I looked at was how long I had to return it, and I was amazed when it said 365 days, and I was like, then searched that again, and I was like, wow, imagine the amount of people who think they've got so long to give it back and then just forget about it and it stays there. And I thought there's probably some psychology in that, instead of the normal 30 days, the 365 days, right? Interesting.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. Or just wear it for the ski season and then just hope that no holes or scrapes get on.
Yeah, exactly. And something you also said, around mindset there, those people who say they're bad with money, but by constantly saying it, they're reinforcing that bad money belief, or whatever you want to call it. But we all know people like that, right? Who constantly reinforce it. And I've, same as you, had that story of, and I always kind of trace it back. And I always remember, getting into debt, but it was from the bank just extending my overdraft whilst at uni. And then before you know it, you're living your life. What was a £500 overdraft, it's then a £2,000 overdraft. And then you going on holiday with the boys in the summer or whatever. And it just,
oh yeah, I've been there,
self-perpetuating, isn't it?
Literally been there. I know that only too well. I turned up on day one in university. They gave me a credit card and an overdraft, and I was 18 and never been taught the value of a pound, and that was it. And I went spiraling off, and that was my relationship with debt. And that's largely why I do what I do now, because I think it's like I managed to get myself out of it, and sort of had a flick and a switch and an aha moment, which I was lucky to have, because a lot of people don't.
What was that? Before we go off on a tangent, what was that?
Friend of mine. So I was sitting on a beach in Vietnam, 3 a.m., few tequila cocktails deep at this point. Everyone had gone to bed, and there's me and my mate sitting on this like beautiful, like white sandy beach. And we're sitting on these deck chairs with like our Hawaiian shirts, like buttoned down, thinking it was super cool, holding these little drinks. And we just started talking about money and started having a really open chat. And one of the things he said to me, and it stuck with me, and it was my little trigger, was I'd hidden my debt from all my mates. They're all quite successful people at young ages. It's really weird, like out of my friendship group, everyone's a head of or a high flying entrepreneur, like doing really, really cool stuff. And it's quite incredible, really. Like we always say, it's like, it's usually one in the group, right? But with us, It's like, it's all of us, it's mental. And he said to me, "Oh, when do you want to retire?" And I was like, "Oh, it'd be nice. 50 would be nice, yeah, it'd be lovely." And he goes, "Oh, all right, cool. Like, when do you want to die?" And I was like, "What a weird question, but 80 would be nice. Good innings, all of that. I think 80 would be a solid." And he goes, "All right, that's 30 years. How much you spend in a year?" And I said, "Oh, I'm probably doing about 30 grand a year, I reckon, give or take." He said, "That's 900 grand. Have you got that?" And I was like, "What?" Like, no, I don't. And I hadn't told anybody I was minus 24 grand at that point. And I did. I sort of said to him that, I'd been burning the candle and got myself in a little bit of a hole. And a third of my wages at that point were just going on interest payments. Like I was in a real hole. And again, I hadn't told my girlfriend at the time, who she had no idea that, she just thought I was quite good with money because I was always managing to buy presents and do cool things. And my mum and dad didn't know. And so it was a real moment for me. And then when I came back from that, it wasn't like a switch. It wasn't like I just became this different person overnight. I just became curious about like what was possible for me. And I started to learn and bring things in. And from that point, I started to change my relationship with money, and it really accelerated for me. And in 18 months, I managed to clear that debt down for a combination of income and side hustles and little side businesses, which I had going at the time. And it just, it was a bit of like, okay, I'm not going to go out for the pints on a Tuesday night, which at 26, you're like, I really kind of want to go and do that. But it does, I went on the Friday pints instead of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So there's a bit of a difference, but you still have to enjoy your life while you're going through that debt journey too. I think it's massively important. And then when I got to zero, it was like, well, what now? Do I just kick on or do I go backwards? And so that sort of 900 grand figure always stuck in my head. And then since then, I've managed to accelerate, and now I teach it and talk about it for a living, which is mental. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. That's why I stopped you there. So, what was that the real screw it, just do it moment, or was there a point where you stopped just being interested in money and decided to build something around it, which is games, right?
So I've managed to always be quite ambitious in whatever I'm doing, and I think that's massively helped me. I was a really young head of marketing and then a director of a hospitality business at 28, and I was like on it. I always wanted to be like the best in whatever I did. And I think that massively helped. When I started learning about money, I was like, I'm going to be the best investor. I'm going to be the best X, Y, and Z. And you soon get a cold hard slap around the face and realize that that's actually really quite bloody difficult. But my screw it, just do it moment was that, like, I realized at the point where I started learning and bringing all of this education into my life, that one, it was really, really difficult to understand most of this stuff. It was like Oxford Dictionary territory to work out what the hell someone was saying, or it was an American. Mm-hmm. And so we had Martin Lewis, who was kind of doing fantastic things at the time, but wasn't really talking about investing, making money online, side hustles, growing businesses, that type of thing. He was leaving that alone. And I just looked
saving
at that
money, isn't it? How can you save?
PPI car insurance, that type of thing. Yeah. And he's brilliant, don't get me wrong, but it just sort of leaves that open. And that's since changed. There are now quite literally thousands of people talking about this on Instagram if you go on there from the UK. But we were early in that journey, one of the few that sort of started doing it. But yeah, the realization for me was that, like, even my friends, family, everyone I was starting to speak to, because I was obsessed, when you just started talking about this stuff, and they're just like, what are you talking about? And that's why I kept getting back. And I was like, well, you don't know this stuff. Like, I thought I was like behind, and it was the other way. So my screw it to do it moment was like, I'm just going to start writing. Anytime someone asks me a question, I'm going to write the article about it to learn myself and then give them something back. And then in COVID, we had a investment WhatsApp group, which quickly grew into like friends of family, friends of their friends. We had about 250 people, which is the limit in the end by the end of COVID. And they would just ask questions and I would write the article. And then they were like, can you make a video about this? And I was like, oh God, video, like that's going to be mental. And so I started doing that, and then it just went nuts. And that's where it went like full public mode, and we started to get millions and millions of views. And it's just been a real crazy journey since then.
Amazing. And what gap did you feel, you talked about Martin Lewis again, but what gap did you feel existed in the market when you launched Up the Gains?
I just think it was very much like there wasn't lots of financial education in the UK that was written down for somebody to understand. And I think that was it was always written in a way where you would then need to do further research. There was never an analogy or something which the everyday person could put into place. Or we used like chocolate and Mars bars and celebrations, and we'd break a chocolate in half and then show them that this is what's happening with your tax and stuff like that. And we'd fill up a glass of juice and show the tax levels changing on your income tax, and so like just stuff that people could get, right? And there just wasn't any of that for the UK. There was in the US, and so I just think that was a real like easy way of getting the basic person from 0 to 1. And that was what we tried to tackle. That's what we try and do now. Everything goes 0 to 1. And then we've now layered on 1 to 2, through 2 to 3, etc. from there. But it is the large part of what we do. It's just that core, like basic understanding of what we feel like the average person needs to know. And it is a little bit more into the investing side. It's that growing money through side hustles and businesses. One of our big things that we talk about is the gap. And so the gap is basically, let's say you're paid £2,000 and you spend £1,500 and your gap is £500 as it exists now. But if you want to retire with a big fat juicy pot and you need to invest £700 a month to get there, well, your gap is now £200. So you need to then go out and find £200 a month, not this like I've got to start a side hustle and bring in 10 grand a week that we see on YouTube every single day. Like, it's okay, I need to start a side hustle or do X, Y, and Z things to get an extra 200 quid in, which is much more durable for those individuals at that point. So that's what we focus on, because once you start going over that hurdle of the like, okay, I could probably bring in an extra £200 a month if you give me 3-4 months to do that. I could probably find a way of doing that, right? But then when they get there, they realise that, okay, £200 is possible, so 400, so 600, and that's it, they're away, and you've just set that person off. So it's just like, we like lighting basically the match we're like the match that comes in and lights the fire under that person and shows them what's possible, because it doesn't matter where you're from, what background you're earning, what salary you're earning. It's just how you're treating your own individual environment and now and then where you're going to go next. And so that's the big sort of gap that we try and fill, really.
So I wanted to let you know about something that I see trip founders up all the time. If you're running a business with international payments, one of the biggest hidden costs is often foreign exchange. World First is built specifically for businesses operating across borders, helping you manage payments, hold multiple currencies, and reduce unnecessary FX costs. They're not a high street bank trying to do everything. They focus purely on international business payments and currency exchange. That's their thing. Switching providers is a commitment, which is why they're giving our listeners 50 fee-free business transactions to properly test their service. Plus, signing up for an account is completely free, and there are no ongoing monthly fees. You've got 60 days from sign up to use them. Head to worldfirst.com/screwit and get your 50 fee-free business transactions. Now back to the podcast.
And when you had that question about what age you were going to retire, and you said 50, what's the answer these days?
Do you know what? Back then I was really unfulfilled, and like I think that's a massive difference now. My goal is actually probably I'm 36. I'd probably say 40 now. I want to be out, and the reason is because I've gone hard for a serious amount of time now, and I don't think I'd ever retire. I'm always going to have fingers in pies and doing stuff.
That's
and
what
I
was going to say, especially now that you're in the content game as well, right? I just don't see that I'd ever actually stop everything, right?
No, it's impossible. I know now. I have a taste of it, and I have first-hand experience of this. Like my granddad run Ronnie Scott's jazz club in Soho for 50 years, and amazing. I watched him deteriorate. He sold the business, left it. 6 months, he was a completely different man. Barely could talk, barely could do anything, and he was like the most sharp, switched on human being I'd ever met before that. And so you stop, your brain stops too. And I'm obsessed with building businesses, doing things. And like, this is what I talk about 24/7. And so I know that even if I sold this business and moved on and had a big payday, I'd be back in 2 months, like putting it in. But I'd also probably buy myself a farm in the middle of Kent and spend loads of times pretending that I'm like, the new Alan Titchmarsh. But I definitely won't be out for long. I know that much.
Was there a point where you realized that this was no longer just content or education, but it was a bona fide real business?
Yeah, I think it was, we went for an award, which was the British Banking Awards. In fact, we got nominated, and I just thought, well, I'm just going to go for it. So I started putting it out and saying that we're doing things. And it was, we won the award. It was a Best Money Content Creator of the Year, 2024 or 524. And then after that, we got the feedback forms from that. And it was quite literally thousands of people writing why they'd voted for us. And it was reading all of those, and I read them. I literally like full tears that coming down your face, because when you put content out on social media, you have no idea who the hell is listening, watching, doing any of these things, unless you meet them in the street and they tell you. They don't really. We were discussing this before. You tend to stay away from the comment section because that's where the really nutcases go. In the majority, don't come for me in the comments after I say that now. But that's largely what we have to do as content creators. We have to turn off from the comments because it's not usually a nice place. But those things there, reading those was like, you changed my life. You helped me get on the housing ladder. I now have an emergency fund in place. I'm out of debt. And I was just like, whoa, like, okay, this is real. I have now not just a responsibility to create content, which I think is helping people. I have a real responsibility to help more and more of these individuals, because this is working. Look at the tangible proof. Yeah. And that fills up my cup in such a different way. And so I think that's, now I feel responsible, whereas before I was just trying to sort of throw stuff at the wall and see what worked. So it really sort of hit the nail on the head for me. And it was last year, friend of mine who's now a co-founder of the app that we're building, Gains, he turned around to me and said, well, what's next? And I didn't have an answer for him at that time. I think I'd always sort of thought it'd be lovely to create an app and go into building something like that, but I also knew that the amount of work it would take and what would be needed. And then, you know, some of these AI tools started coming out, and I was like, well, this is now possible. And that's where it sort of triggered that for me. And, you know, when you're on a content, you know this better than anyone, it's a hamster wheel. And you get off for 2 secs and your business goes. And so I was like, well, how long can I keep that up for forever at this pace that we're at? And I didn't have an answer. And I certainly knew eventually I probably would burn out. So it made sense to leverage the amount of traffic and people that we have following us and create something for them, which would actually change their lives even more. So IP Tech was that journey. And I know that's a typical Daniel Priestley phrase, but he was actually the one that inspired that. And I asked him a question at an event, and I said, you know, what's the evolution of that? And he just went IP Tech, and that was it. So I knew that we just had to do it. And yeah, we've been on that journey ever since.
And he'll be coming on your show before you know it, right?
yeah. After months and months and months of DMing him.
It'll be worth the wait, trust me. It'll be worth the wait. I'm trying to get him back for a second time, and he said yes as well. So we'll see.
I've been to so many of his shows, read all his books. He's one of those guys I've always just really looked up to, and his, you know, deserved meteoric rise over the past couple of years. It's incredible. The books are fantastic. He's a really nice guy. You know, even when I asked that question to him at the event, a lot of people I've asked questions to at events before, you ask the question and they don't talk back to you. They sort of see that as their moment to then go off and then talk to everybody about this is what I feel. And but he just stood there and looked directly at me and spoke at me. And that always stuck in my mind as a real personable character. And I try and do that now. I try and just address when we do talks on stages and stuff. If someone asks me a question, I just try and switch at them, because I just thought, what a nice thing. But it is about this. It's about learning off everybody you possibly can and putting it into your own life to build your own tool set. And I think that's massively important.
One of the things that I always remember from having Daniel on this show was I asked him about Key Person of Influence, that book, and it's over a decade old now, I think, isn't it? It's longer than it might be getting on for 15 years. But he said it was really interesting, like when we were talking about it, and he was just like, you know, just kind of spitballing stuff and saying stuff off the top of his head, and he was just like, if I'd actually you know, given more thought into it at the time, or put more effort into the marketing of that at the time, because I could have been the Gary Vaynerchuk or the Alex Hormozi. And I was like, and now you look back on that interview I did with him was probably 3 years ago now. And then you now look at, he's been on Dara CEO, has just been on it for the 7th time. And it's funny, isn't it? You can kind of see somebody's journey, and it's like, well, that wasn't maybe the right time. You wrote the book, but now clearly is your time, because his star has just gone stratospheric, isn't it? It's you are where you're meant to be and all that kind of stuff, right?
100%. He started utilizing short form content to his advantage, and went on every single podcast that I could possibly ever see. And certain people started following him around. I think his breakthrough moment was the Ali Abdaal episode that did like 3.5 million views, when he was like, if I give you 10K, build a business. And then Steven since replicated that, and, you know, and people have taken that idea. But he is one of those people that just has been there, walked the walk and done it, and deserves his flowers, in my opinion.
Yeah. Talking about social, do you think social media has helped financial literacy or made it worse? Because, as you alluded earlier, suddenly everyone thinks they're an expert, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one. The answer is yes and no. There is so many. I'll talk about the negatives first. You've got the Manosphere documentary come out. I don't know if you've seen it, the Louis Theroux thing that came out there's these absolute donuts selling, Telegram and trading signals and Forex and look at me and my Lambo life in Dubai guys. And they're really, really dangerous. And these kids that look up to these guys and they create these personas. And again, massively dangerous, get rich quick schemes. If someone's going to make you rich in a really small, short space of time, largely look at that as a complete and utter waste of your time, because it is. I've been there. I've tested some of these things just to see whether or not they actually work, because that's my job, and none of them work. You all lose money, and so I just think, like with anything in life, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. But social media has fueled this, because they look at their life and think that's how they should be living, and I think that's the dangerous side of financial education on the internet. There's people like myself that try and keep it clean, try and teach people, and we still take flack from the press and things like that, because we talk about investing and growing money, and we're not regulated, but we do it from personal experience. And I've been doing this investing nearly 10 years now, and there's a massive gap as well. The advice gap in the UK is huge. Like most financial advisors, you need at least 10 grand liquid, but realistically, it's like you're talking hundreds of thousands liquid for most financial advisors. And most financial advisors won't come on the internet and talk, because most people don't have 10 grand liquid, right? So it's like they're not going to do it because they're not going to get any clients. So no one does it. And then but then how do you get a person from 0 to 10 grand so they can become your client? It's like, it's this sort of catch-22. And so that's where we exist. We exist in that gap. And, we try and stay on the right side of this line and educate, and we have to put warnings on absolutely everything. It's not financial advice, right. It's education and personal experience, and what works for me doesn't work for you, and all of these things. We have to say it all the time, because we've got to be careful. We have a responsibility. If someone decides to go and invest in something and loses all their money, well, that's on us. And so we've got to be careful. And so we try to do good, and I think if you're trying to do good, people can see that, and it's eventually you win out. But it's a grey line and a grey area for sure. There's certainly a lot of people that step over that line, and there's certainly a lot of people that don't. So it's just a case of and also it is a lucrative business if you get it right. So some of these finance brands paying thousands of pounds, and that can work in people's favour or not. Again, so I think it's been helpful, but I also think it's been very detrimental as well.
Okay. So how do you therefore then talk to specifically young people about things like cryptocurrency, about investing, and risk, without either completely scaring them off or encouraging some form of recklessness, right?
So look, I think it's just about allocating. It's about understanding what's risky, what's less risky, because there is always risk when it comes to investing. I think that's massively important for the everyday person to understand. But it's about balance, right? Everybody knows that Bitcoin's volatile. Everybody knows that certain other cryptocurrencies are even more volatile. So just don't put all your eggs in one basket. Is quite simple with that. If something's a higher risk asset, maybe allocate 5% of your money to it rather than 50 or 60, which I know a lot of people do, and they're totally okay with that. Again, you might be all right with that, and you yourself, Alex, you might be like, I can't tell you that. That would kill me. I'd be there every day, like worrying about it, stressed. Right? And I'm one of those individuals, right? I thought I was really risk on, and then it all started going tits up, and I'm like, actually, I really don't enjoy this at all, and so I moved away from that. So I just think for the basic person, setting up a stocks and shares ISA and putting a bit of money into a global index fund, which is basically the most diverse fund of thousands of different companies all across the world. You've got your Apples, your Microsofts, your Teslas, but also all of the UK, all of France, all of India, all of Japan, or in one thing. It's like betting on the world's economy. Human progress is a quote from Andrew Craig's book, How to Own the World. And that's like just one of the easiest things you can do, and you don't need to do anything else, but obviously everybody, and especially the young kids, want to. So I just think edge into a few little things find your lane, work out your risk tolerance, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And generally, that's going to fare you quite well over the long term.
Mm. And you mentioned it before, and I don't think we went into much detail about it, but tell me about Gains and what you're building now, and who's that going to help, and how it's ultimately going to help them.
Yeah, so we identified like two core problems that this app sort of holds. The one is the cost of living. So it's gone up and it's getting worse, even though it's a buzzword and a cliche word. The effects of that are still very visible and increasing. So everything's getting much more expensive and it's getting harder to live. People are taking on extra jobs or cutting back certain things in their life that they don't want to cut out, and that's really hurting families across the UK. So big problem there. The second side of it is the current apps which exist to help them manage their money on a day-to-day basis are very judgmental in the way that they're essentially spreadsheets with, big red, you've gone over here, and people don't enjoy that. So the second problem is that people don't actually want to look at what they've done because they get judged about it, made to feel worse, and they bury their head in the sand and rather not look at it. So what we've done is we've kind of approached this from a financial wellness perspective on one side. So it's very much like an arm around. It's like, okay, you might well have done this, but it's okay. We've got some money over here, which we can move things around, and you're going to be all right if you don't go nuts again, right? Like it's more of an arm around, but also do something about it type of approach. So the app is essentially connects to your banks through open banking. You can see what's going on across all of your bank accounts in one place. You can plan your spending, see your upcoming payments, see what subscriptions potentially you've missed. You can speak to our AI financial coach called Richie on the app as well. And Richie's going to go out and find you savings here and there. It's going to teach you about money. You can learn on the app. There's financial education built in. And then to solve the cost of living angle is we've built in instant cashback. So there's 180 top major retailers across the UK. And the way that works is Tesco, for example, will give us 5%. We give you 4% of that. So we take a little bit of the spread. That's how the app sort of stays alive and we pay our bills. And the customer would go on and log in. Let's say you're spending £100 a week in Tesco, and you get 5% off. Let's call it 5% because it's simple. So immediately when you buy the gift voucher on the site, up the Gains in the app in this case, you get £5 credit to your account instantly, and you can build that balance up and withdraw that or use it for more gift vouchers. So when you go into Tesco's, either online or in store, you just scan it like you would when you're paying with your card or Apple Pay. There's no difference. And that money is then, you've got that off. And the way I liken this to is like, let's say you've got a pair of trainers over here, which is £100. You've got a pair of trainers over here, which is £90, and they're the exact same pair. Which one are you picking? And the answer is always the 90 quid one.
Gold one.
So, yeah, the gold ones. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. But it's a way of putting money back in your pocket. And we've done the calculations on this. And someone earning the median average UK salary of £37,000 can save between £1,000 and £1,100 utilising Gains if they do it on all of their spending. So it's on everything from groceries to travel to hotels to fashion to going out. It's all on there. And we hope it's going to make a big difference for people.
For someone who feels financially behind, and maybe again we will say somebody like we experienced in our 20s or 30s who feels financially behind, what would your advice be to them? Because you've been through it, I've been through it. There's a lot of challenges mentally that comes with that, and feeling that you've got the whole world on your shoulders, and feeling that you can't tell anyone. You did tell somebody in the end. What would your advice be, Sammie? Because you kind of been through there and clearly affected your life to go and do what you're doing now, right?
I always say to people, you're not behind. You're exactly where you're meant to be, and that's right now at the starting line. And you watch someone's face change when you say that to them, because it's true, right? You've got yourself to this point. You now have a choice. You always have a choice as where you go next, and that's totally fine. That's why there's the average millionaire is like 57 for a self-made millionaire, right? Everybody thinks it's their 20s because that's what social media shows you. But it's not true, right? And so it takes a long time to do anything with money. And I think that that's what a lot of people can't accept until they really start turning a corner. And that's why they feel that they don't want to turn the corner, because it takes so long in reality. But there's over 9 million people without with zero savings, so not £1. Over 9 million people without a pound saved, and over a third of the UK have less than £1,000 in savings, so they couldn't bat off a basic emergency. So just by getting to those points, and I feel like setting your goals a lot smaller initially, rather than looking up at that 900 grand number that I said earlier. It's going to massively overwhelm anybody if you do that.
Yeah.
But going and looking at this and going, actually, let me just get my first 100 quid locked away. And now I'm going to work to 1,000 because that's doable. Okay, now 2, now 3, now 4. And just breaking it right down into chunks, because that's all you can do with your power. And if you can save £500 and the other person can save a tenner, there's no difference to that, because it's the way that you see it. There's no comparison there at all, because it's called personal finance. And so it's just having that in your mind, and whatever you can afford is whatever you can afford. You're just going to have to adjust your expectations based on that. And that's just the cards that are in front of you right now. But you can always shuffle the pack and go for the ace.
Agreed.
I think that's really important.
Yeah. What's one money habit that changed your life the most?
Yeah, it is that £100 rule.
Right.
It is that £100 rule, because I know that I'm a spender, and I know I get suckered into stuff, and I get really excited, and I'm on the a site looking at an outside sauna hydro pool or something, and I'm like,
I'm looking at that at the moment.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm moving from where I live, and it's got a nice place for the sauna to go. Got it sorted already. Yeah,
I get it. I really do, because you start getting feeling. You think, yeah, like, that's nice. I'm gonna do that. And look, if you can afford it, fantastic, great. Like I get it, but it's like being okay with going, all right. I should probably calm down and get a little bit because it looks beautiful, but do I really need it? And if the answer is yes, fantastic, go out and buy the thing. Like, I'm not one of those people that's like baked beans and shut yourself in a room and invest it all into the S&P 500, guys. Come on, there's life for living at the end of the day. But I just think putting those things in place, the main habit I ask myself is, will this actually provide me any value, or am I buying it because social status or social media is telling me that I should? And that's the question I ask myself, and it has got me out of a lot of holes over the years.
You said you were cold water dipper like me as well.
Yes.
What have you? I think one of the. So normally when you get into something, it's like all the gear, right? So I'm like golfer as well. Like paddle tennis. Let's get another racket. Let's get a new set of golf clubs. The beauty of cold water dipping, all I've bought, I think, in the 6 years I've been doing it, is upgraded my dry robe. And that's literally it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, because there's certain things in life, most things in life that are enjoyable that can make a difference to you are probably free or cost next to nothing, right?
100%. Yeah.
And so, and you only realize that after you've made mistakes. I think that's a massive thing to say as well. It's like, I can say this to you and you go, yeah, he's right, or yeah, he's wrong, or whatever. That doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're still going to go out and probably make a ton of mistakes, even though I'm telling you all this stuff. And you're only after you make those mistakes, you turn around and go, like, I probably shouldn't have bought the thing. Like, what was I doing? And that's fine, because cool, you've maybe learnt yourself a lesson there. And as you say, as we get older, us oldies, we realise that okay, I've got the sea down the road, or I could pop out for a little jog and it's going to make me feel better, or whatever those things, and it costs me nothing. Or I buy myself a £3 Primark towel. I still use my £3 Primark towel to go in the sea. So it's it's not. And I've been looking at them dry robes as well. I've taught myself out of it a couple of times. Who knows?
Honestly, best purchase without a shadow of a doubt. Warmest thing in the world.
The missus got given one by my mum, and she looks very cool. It's one of those camo ones with the pink, like neon fur inside.
Yeah. I'm jealous. I got a camo one, but with the orange fur. There you go.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Not pink for me. Okay, last question. And as usual, I've run over because we went completely off-piste early doors before we even hit record. Last question, and then a very quick quickfire round. What does financial freedom mean to you right here, right now in 2026?
Yeah, so really interestingly, it's nothing to do with money, which blows a lot of people's minds. Like they're like, "Oh, you don't want a Porsche or a £1 million investment portfolio," and I'm like, "Yeah, they would be nice, but they're not the things. They're not the things. They're the thing. It's the things that lights me up. So it's more time with my partner. It's being able to play golf on a Tuesday afternoon because I feel like it. It's being out in the garden and nature as much as I possibly can. It's meeting a friend on a Wednesday afternoon for coffee because I can. It's time freedom and choice. Those are the two aspects for me that give me the most value, that where I can improve my life. But the wrapper around that, the key contributing factor is I'm going to need some money. So you're going to have to solve the money problem to be able to solve those problems too. So that's what financial freedom means to me. But then I need to go and bring in some money to be able to allow me to do that. And you'd be surprised when you ask yourself that question, is that it's probably a lot less than you really think if you wanted to actually go out and do those things. So it doesn't necessarily, you don't need the mansion in the Hamptons. You need you want a solid house that does yourself the job, and you want an all right amount of money locked away so you can allow yourself to make these decisions and do the things that you want to do.
It's really interesting. That's your answer, because I'm exactly the same. It's freedom of time, isn't it? But as you say, you need to accumulate some money to do that. And I've just gone through this whole exercise in the last 6 months of downsizing is the wrong word, like minimizing. What do I actually need? What is this? I'm not a hoarder anyway, but moving somewhere and literally, won't have a mortgage, and literally working out what do I need to do the things I love, which is finishing work early on a Friday and playing golf with three of my best mates. Been doing that for 6 years. There's another lockdown thing.
Oh, nice.
It just closes off the week, right? Like mentally, and like opens up the weekend again. You kind of compartmentalize it. Just the beer at the end is not even crazy, like 2 or 3. It's literally one beer sat out, hopefully in the sun on this Friday, and doing that, having the time to go and dip in the sea in the morning before I do the school run, those things like that, and literally redoing that exercise, which I was still doing yesterday, of going, so how much do I need to live moving forward if I don't have to pay to live somewhere? Yes, there's council tax, and as we know, it's all going up faster than the cost of inflation, unfortunately. So you never truly know from year to year what your outgoings are going to be. Thanks to the council and the governments, etc. But it's trying to be as educated as you possibly can be, right? There's a lot of noise.
Definitely, man. But you can get to a certain figure, and that could allow you to cut back and go 2-3 days a week, which then puts some of your time back in. I think a lot of people say it's like all or nothing, right? And it doesn't have to be that way. You can build up to a certain period. That's why the FIRE movement exists. It's like, but you can have coast fire, which is basically like, it's not a lot of money at all, but that allows you to go from 5 days to 4 days a week, where you can then spend that one day on your hobby. And so there's certain ways of doing this, and it's just about doing that exercise and working that out. Like, how much does the value of the life that I actually want cost? And it's mental when you do it, because it's always about 5 times less than what you think,
isn't it? I know. I thought mine was, multiple 6-figure lifestyle, but it's actually not. It really isn't.
I mean, it'd be nice. Like, it'd be nice if someone dropped 5 million quid in my account tomorrow. I'm not going to say no. Like, let's be honest, right? But also, it's just like, do I want to go and burn myself that hard and, hustle? Because I could probably get there if I really, really wanted to. But do I want to do that to myself? And I'm like, no, because now I've got other things. And this is another thing as an entrepreneur, like, have some hobbies, man. Those entrepreneurs that get so attached to their businesses, 16-hour days, and then they sell, and then they go literally mental because they don't know who the hell they are, because their whole identity is that individual thing. It's just a sad life, man. And so, like, find something that you love outside of it, and then be okay with it being a little bit less than this like high sort of mantelpiece that everybody wants to reach up for all the time. So
yeah. No, and I mean, one of my best friend who I was talking about to you earlier is just leaving Divine out about that because he's out there on his own and his family over in the UK. He's literally, he's still messaging me on Saturdays and Sundays going, I've just built this new landing page on Lovable. I've just created this new spreadsheet. I was like, dude, just go to the golf course, get a lesson, have a beer, get out, just get out, basically. And he just sat, in a one-bedroom apartment, looking out across to the sea there. And
there's a period of life for that, right? 4 or 5 years, lock in, get yourself up to a good levels, good standard. I back that every single day. I did it with Up the Gains, and I talk about it all the time. I was up at 5, going to bed at 1 a.m. for a whole year. Yeah. And then after that, and that built me the business that I could then utilize to do those things. It's just, a lot of people build the business and then their whole identity becomes that like hustle mindset, and they don't put life back into play. And it's a constant battle for me. My missus always tells me I work too much, and I think I don't, but that's just the way it is, right?
Yeah. And then you get, and I know he wasn't trying to, I mean, I think I mentioned about, Gary Vaynerchuk definitely had an impact on that. And when I was starting out as an entrepreneur, like back in 2009, after I left corporate life at Virgin Atlantic, that was a thing, that hustle culture. And I know, again, I saw Simon get Simon Squid posted something. I think it was Christmas Day or New Year's Day. And it was just like, I'm just working. I know some people, thinks you should be relaxing, but work to me isn't work. And I just thought that's really dangerous how you kind of phrase that. And you can imagine, without looking at the comments, what that's kind of going to attract, kind of reinforcing that. But we won't go there.
Yeah. I love him. He's a fantastic human. But yeah, I did see that one. I was like, okay. And it is true though. I appreciate that. But there's taste and tonality and reading the room sometimes that you need to have. And I get that wrong too. So
yes, reading the room. Good point. So look, before we go to quickfire round, just anything that we didn't cover that you think is worth mentioning now before I hit the quickfire round.
Oh, I think we've gone pretty deep. I've enjoyed this. I've been able to hit the nail on the head on this one. It's been a good chat.
Nice. No, agreed. Really glad we did it. Just couple of questions. First thing that comes into your head, for you, Sammie, what is an entrepreneur? What defines an entrepreneur?
The freedom to execute on ideas which are in your mind and the belief to make them happen.
Love that. I haven't had that before. I like that one. What is a scale-up business?
It's a business with a large, it doesn't have to be large, but it can be a big target in mind and the team and the vision to try and execute that to get yourself there from ground zero, essentially.
Cool. What can we do to create more scale-ups, more unicorn businesses?
In the UK, lower the taxes. Please lower the taxes on entrepreneurs. I'm also a massive fan of the Daniel Priestley idea of like creating hubs in certain cities which have like complete and utter tax haven for small businesses. But I also think across the UK in general, if your turnover is under £10 million, that you're almost like given free rein to grow and pump that money into staff, into resources, into tech. And, I think that's going to have a massive effect on the UK. And I just feel like that's something we're lacking. We've got an entire cabinet of people that have barely run a business before or really understand it, making these massive decisions for us. And I just think it's so dangerous. And I would love to see this Labour government or any government that comes into power back British businesses, because we have literally everything going for us in this country, and I'm a massive believer of that.
Yeah, I'm the same. You might have answered this one already with a certain name we've mentioned a few times, but what is one entrepreneur that you admire? And you can say somebody else.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of Dan Martell.
Yeah,
I
okay.
really like Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. That was quite, we've been speaking about some of the sort of philosophies in that. Is that
Yeah.
I really don't enjoy doing this, and I really enjoy doing this. So I hire people to stop me from doing the things which I don't enjoy, so I can do more of the things which I enjoy, which in turn makes the business more money. And there's a kind of balancing act and exercise that you go throughout the book. But he's also brilliant on AI. He has
Yes.
lots of AI companies. He's quite outspoken about different AI tools and how to use them. So very useful and brilliant speaker as well. You should definitely check out some of his podcasts. He's
That
a
was
brilliant speaker.
bizarrely. There's been a lot of synchronicity here during this interview. Funnily enough, that was the last person that I looked at on Instagram when I was having my lunch earlier before coming on here.
Oh,
So
all right, cool.
that's a bit mad. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
That
nice.
was a bit
We're like the
mad.
same person, Alex. What's going on?
Yeah, I know. What's going on, man? Here's a new one that I'm adding, and you can come back to me on this one because I'm throwing it out there without any preparation. But if you could select one song, one music track that would define your entrepreneurial journey thus far, what would you choose?
Wicked question. Wicked
Thank you.
question. Yeah, love that. I'm a massive muso, so like I've just got
Right.
tons of things thrown around at me. But I'd probably go with James Brown, the Boss.
Oh, okay, cool. Like it.
Yeah, because it's got that kind of like groove and funk track soul, and I try and bring like a little bit of flavor to what we do. And
Yeah.
you're trying to be the boss, and I think that's like a really cool way of looking at it.
Nice. What out of
That's
interest? What kind of music do you listen to then? What are your like main go tos?
I'm crazy on music in general. So I grew up on jazz, and that kind of led me to old school hip hop. So I love my old school jazzy '90s funky hip hop,
Yeah.
and then that hip hop led me to sort of drum and bass and garage, and that sort of took that full dance music, and to honestly listen to everything. The only thing I can't deal with is like sort of heavy metal rock.
Oh,
But
we've fallen out. There we go. We found something we disagree
man,
on.
there we go.
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
it.
cool.
It's over, mate. It's over.
I can't. It's the shouting. It's the shouting. I can't do the shouting. As soon as they do the shouting, I'm like, okay, there's no melody in that for me anymore. So,
That's
but
so
I'm
funny.
a big like a huge indie fan, and like I'm obsessed with guitar music and bands too. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Right, right.
I'm a yeah.
It's not anti-guitar.
No, absolutely not. I went to see Kasabian a couple of weeks ago, so
Oh, I love
like
Kasabian. Okay.
I love like British indie rock and punk, and so punk is a big part of my upbringing as well. My dad loves all that stuff, so yeah.
My youngest is going to the first festival. What the hell is it called? The one down in Newquay that all the sixth formers go to.
Oh yeah,
What the hell is it
not
called?
the Isle of Wight. Not the
No,
Isle of Wight. No.
no, down in
Oh
Newquay
yeah,
in
no.
Cornwall. But anyway, it'll come to me as soon as we finish. But Kasabian are headlining, and she has no idea who Kasabian is. So I literally just went, as we were doing the school run, I was just straight on straight on the on Spotify, and literally just got straight
That
into
first
it.
album from Kasabian is probably right up there in my top 10. I know every word, I know every drum groove. It's
Yeah.
class.
Awesome band.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay, we're back on track. Sammy. All right.
No, I'm crazy. I'm crazy with eclectic. Like I was just listening to Fela Kuti before I came in here. I'll go inside. I'll probably be in the mood for some drum and bass. Now I've said it, or then
Yeah.
do 2 hours of that. Come back out, listen to some crying music and whatever, So.
That's funny, isn't it? Because I remember back in the day. So I remember going to one of the kids' houses at lunchtime for lunch when I was 11 years old, and I can remember. And before then, I was into it was like Madness, Adam and the Ants, that kind
Nice.
of like.
Yeah,
and then he played me Back in Black by AC/DC, and it completely changed my life in a 4-minute lunch hour. And ever since then, heavy metal. But then I discovered dance music, and I went trance. So it's kind of like two extremes.
Oh, interesting.
harmonies that link together, and it kind of gives you the same dopamine effect that I've read, which I knew nothing about, and that kind of explains
I didn't know that.
a lot to me. Yeah, it's like especially those bands that have twin guitars, like an Iron Maiden or a Metallica or a Queensryche, those kind of bands, and it's like they're kind of soaring melodies, and there's a real comparison to then listening to something like an Armin van Buuren or a Tiesto or something like that. So I was just like, right, it all makes sense now.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Cool.
You learn something new every day.
You do. There you go. Well, listen, that's been an awesome conversation. Apologies as always for running massively over, as is my
no problem at all. Yeah, it's
dog.
been exciting.
But appreciate that, and good luck with the Daniel interview as well, and all the other building the app, etc. Massively helpful. I'll get my kids on it as well, without a shadow of a doubt. So, Sammie, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, mate.
If this conversation resonated with you, don't just sit there, act on it. Make sure you follow or subscribe for more game-changing conversations, and remember, the only thing standing between you and your business breakthrough is the decision to screw it and just do it.